Okay, now let me talk about my living situation in Sydney. Like I said before, the first 4 weeks I lived with Frank and Janet and the kids, um, and then I was in Newcastle for a period of time, uh, and when I came back to Sydney, I needed somewhere to live, and friends of mine, which I met on the ship, was Dieter and Arnie. Dieter used to live in Sweden, so he knew the situation, kind of what you do. And there was a big, used to be a hotel or something like that, right across from the hostel where Ernie was. So he looked at this, he looked up who it belongs to, and the place was totally dilapidated. Nobody was living in there. So he said to the owner, "Okay, look, I rent it, and I'll fix it up." And so, yeah, okay. So the owner agreed. They didn't charge a lot of rent. Apparently, I don't know how much he charged. It was in Flinder Street in Darlinghurst in Sydney. And so what he did, he fixed an area up for himself, 2 rooms or something like that, so he and Arnie could live in there. And then he would start fixing up different rooms and bathrooms and stuff like that. Like the bathrooms, the bedrooms and the bathrooms were at the corridor, so you had three bedrooms and one bathroom type of thing. So as you can imagine, it was an old hotel, very old, and some of the floorboards in the corridors were creaking and kind of breaking in and stuff like that. So he had to do a lot of fixing. So I moved in, and the agreement was that I would do the electrical in the house. Like I would fix all the electrical stuff, power points and outlets and wiring and stuff like that. And for that I could live for free. I could live in the rooms which weren't fixed up. So I said that's fine with me. What I did is in one of the rooms which wasn't fixed up, I just put a tent in. I could put nails in the ground and in the floor, and I put a tent up and I slept in the tent. I had a little TV in the tent and so on. It was quite comfortable and easy. And then so I did all the rooms and fixed all the electrical stuff in the house, and in the meantime I got my job at the opera house as well, and I think I was living there for a few months. There was mainly Germans living in there. One of them was Wolfgang, the guy who enticed me about making the Black Forest cake, or kind of wanted to have it for his birthday. And Stuart was one English guy who lived in there, and that was about it. So, and Dieter fixed it nicely up, and so and out of that relationship with Dieter, which I basically knew him from the ship, but we didn't have very close. It became over the years, whenever I felt like I need some extra money or something like that, Dieter always had a job for me, working, painting houses or cleaning up or whatever. So that was good, and we're still friends today. Um, so after I finished the electrical stuff in there and I didn't want to do anymore, I realized that if I stay in that house, I never learn English. So I needed to go somewhere where I was forced to learn English. so I answered an ad in the paper where 2 girls were looking for a guy to share. I said, that's good for me. So I went there. It was in Edgecliff. I went over there and I introduced myself. I came in and if I could have the room which they were offering. And I was sitting there on the couch, and while I was sitting there, 2 other guys, one after the other, came in applying for the place, and I was just sitting there, and they kind of just were quickly interviewing them and sent them back home again. I thought, oh, that looks pretty good for me. So I got the room, of course. And one of the first things was because up until that point, I had my sleeping bag, a linen sleeping bag, and that was it, and a blanket. So the first thing they went out and bought me sheets and blanket for the bed. Okay, that was one thing. And then their arrangement was that we have we pay $5 a week. I give them $5 a week, and they would cook for me. You know, they would buy the food and cook for me. $5. It was 1971. That was normal going rate. And I said, okay, that's fine. So it didn't last very long, because first night I got was mashed potatoes, peas, and lamb chops. Second night was lamb chops, mashed potatoes, and peas. And the third night was peas, lamb chops, and mashed potatoes. I said, okay, look, I give you the $5, but I'll cook for myself. Okay, so of course I cooked things like schnitzel and other stuff, you know. And then they looked at what I was eating. Oh man, ugh, how can you eat this stuff? They ate mashed potatoes, peas, and chops. That was it. Anyway, so that lasted for a period of time, and I can't remember how long it lasted, but it was good. It was good fun. And another thing which I was up to at that point, they usually sometimes they want to go to the club, dancing or whatever it does at night, and they inform me about 9 or 10 o'clock at night that they want to go to the club, but they didn't want to go by themselves. So I went into Sydney for them to go to a club. The thing was, that they being girls, they got in for free. I had to pay 9, 10 o'clock at night. So I, stupid as I am, I paid, went in there, and then, they went off and talked to other guys and whatever it is, and I just sat there, had my drink, I had a glass of beer or something like that, and then eventually I went home. But not before one night, Jackie and Linda. Jackie came over and said, oh, come on, there's these guys over there and they want to meet you. I said, okay, well, okay, no problems, I'll go. So I went over there, and this group of guys were sitting around, and of course they expected a girl, and they said she has got another roommate there. So then I came, and these guys looked at me, kind of very strange, what's this? And they said, well, do you live with these girls? I said, yeah. Whoa, man, this is good. Forget it. I said, okay, fine. So anyway, so the conversation started, and in my basic English, at that point I was already in the country for about 3-4 months, and my English started getting better. So they started talking to me about Hitler and stuff like that, and oh my God, I said, anyway, it didn't last very long, and then I just left and went home. And the next morning when I got up, there was this it was in the girls' bedroom. The girls were sleeping in one bed and 2 guys sleeping in the other bed. Another morning I got up, and the guys were all sleeping on the couch in the living room. And I said, on the floor. And I said, well, why don't you go home? He said, oh no, we can't go home. We got to, when we get home, we have to tell the stories how we kind of hung in with the girls. And so anyway, so that was kind of pretty stupid. And from there, when I moved out of there after a few months, we were good friends, and they went somewhere or did something, and then I wanted to move out, and I moved into Tamarama Beach, which is next to Bondi Beach. It's a very small beach, and but it's beautiful. And on top of the cliffs there was a big building. I think it had 50 units or something in there. It used to be, in the old days, I was told it was a brothel, but of course by the time I moved in, it was just a normal building. And the caretakers of the building were people from Romania, I think, or somewhere like that. He was a doctor and she was something else, but both of them, of course, couldn't work as in their profession in Australia, so they worked initially as cleaners at the hospital, and then eventually they got a job as a caretaker in that building. They had 2 units, and that was theirs, and they got to live there for free, but they took care of the entire building. And I moved in there with another guy called Peter Bessler, and he was a chemist in a big company. He was a chemist, and he was originally from Perth, and yeah, we kind of lived there, and I've got other stories about that in that living situations there. So that was my first kind of living with in Sydney with other people other than Germans.